What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone is having a great night so far. I'm here with some very special guests with my co-host Brad, and we're with the 4th and 20 crew, Toast and Marsh. Guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your night. I know you're early morning risers to come on the show. It's truly a pleasure to talk Canes football with you guys.
Good to be here, man.
Yeah, always happy to jump on. I'll see Toast in about 6 hours, but yeah.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Brad, where do we start? I mean, we're looking for a new safeties coach, new cornerbacks coach, new defensive line coach. It's like deja vu once again this offseason, just on the defensive side of the football. Some say even we're looking for a new co-defensive coordinator. Where do you want to start this show off, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, we got to start with the coaching hires and guys who resigned and got fired. And let's start with like the one that everyone's kind of wondering about, and that's DeMarcus Van Dyke, right? We all kind of thought at first that he was going to Utah State, and as it looks like, and they're doing their announcements for Coach Banda and Coach Zuckerman over there, but you're not seeing anything about DeMarcus Van Dyke. So I want to get your opinions both first on a very interesting question. I'm going to go right out the gate firing for the show. Let's just say it came down to it, and DeMarcus Van Dyke ended up staying with the University of Miami and being the actual cornerback coach for Miami. I want to get both of y'all's opinions on what you would rank that hire and your thoughts on that.
You can go first, Toast.
I'm all for that hire. I would love that hire. Everything I've heard about DVD behind the scenes is that he is exceptional at what he does. He's really good at this. He's really good at coaching, and this is definitely the direction that his career is going to be going in, that he's going to be getting offers from other schools. He's going to have that opportunity. I was saying to Marsh, I was kind of tweaked that he was leaving, and before Rumpf, the whole Rump thing came down, and it was like, if we're going to lose him and then we're going to fire Rump, it would have been nice to, get that done first so we could have kept DVD, because the next progression is for him to get a promotion. And I would rather have that be within the program than have it be elsewhere. So if that's what's happening, if it was suddenly like, I'm going to go with Banda, but then all of a sudden, well, you know what, actually, we're going to let Mike go. So if you, and he's like, well, you know what? Like, I'll talk to you, Manny. Okay, I'll talk to you. Then I'm all for that. All for that.
All right. Yeah, I think with DVD, I think it if we do hire him, my opinion on that will depend a lot on who we hire also as a safeties coach. I think that'll play a big role in it. I mean, I think it would be, I'd rather have guys maybe like a T-Rob or even Corey Bell, but I think it'd be a definite improvement in recruiting. As far as developing, I guess we'll kind of see. So, but I think
it would be an improvement in recruiting. Really?
I mean,
it's quite a take, Bryce. That's going out on a limb.
Yeah, you and I could join the chat and be an improvement in recruiting. So, but yeah, it doesn't. If we hire DVD as cornerbacks coach, I wouldn't be overly excited or thrilled. It would, it is what it is.
I will say this. So the fact that once we got rid of Rump and we kind of didn't really promote DVD right away kind of showed me that Manny has a little bit of patience, especially at a position of very need, not only in players, but also in coaching and developing, that we didn't just go ahead and shoot the gun real quick, that we're kind of doing our due diligence. It seems like every coach that's being brought up all have South Florida ties. So at the end of the day, when it comes to recruiting, as far as cornerbacks, I think wherever we go in this scenario, whether it is DVD or some of these other names I'm going to bring up, our recruiting alone is gonna be better, right? From what we had before. Now it comes to the developing part. It's all going to be whether or not does Miami want to spend the money. From everything I heard, so the last time me and Paul had a show, there was a name that I didn't want to bring up yet because it hasn't been brought up. And within 24 hours, Manny Navarro brought his name up, and now he's already hired, and that was Coach Wesley Griffiths. From things I heard, is that Miami was definitely interested in a guy like him to come in and work with the secondary. But he obviously just got picked up by Florida to coach the cornerback position. So now from everything, it seems like it's a two-way battle between DeMarcus Van Dyke as your cornerback coach and T-Rob. It all really just comes down to how much do you want to spend on just a cornerback coach for a guy like T-Rob, or is he going to come in and actually be a co-DC? That would also mean demoting Blake Baker, right? So I think all this is going to come down to Manny Diaz. And I will throw out another name that hasn't probably been brought up, and that's Coach Fran Brown out of Temple. He also coached at Rutgers, I believe. He was a co-defensive coordinator at Temple and coached secondary at Rutgers. He's a name that I've heard as well inside the program, Coach Fran Brown, as far as the cornerback. So those are your three corners that I've heard for someone.
And Brad, I mean, oh, go ahead, Toast.
Well, I was just going to say that, listen, you need to realize that Miami is always going to be a small private school in the ACC. So for Miami, the cornerback coach, that's an entry-level position into the coaching staff. And that goes to the backroom guy that everyone's talking about around the country that, think that everyone, that's who gets that gig at Miami. That's Miami's not going to spend big money on a cornerbacks coach. That's just not how, unless you are right, it's a co-DC sort of a thing like that, or an assistant head coach. But even at that, you're still not going to spend what they would in the SEC. So you're not going after those guys that are established. You have to, as Miami, you have to be better at hiring coaches. You have to be better at finding the coaches before they're high priced on the radar for everybody else. You have to be better at finding those. And I think that is a situation that we're having issues with.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I don't mind the DVD hire. It's just, I would much rather see DVD kind of get his bumps and bruises. I mean, his first time being a cornerback coach, I would like him to kind of get that knocked out of the way somewhere else over at Utah State and kind of work his way into feeling how it is to be a cornerback coach. But again, like you said, I mean, we are an entry-level program right now when it comes to those position coaches, and it could possibly be that we end up with DeMarcus Van Dyke, which, again, it might not be a bad thing, but I think if we want to take this defense to the next level, we need to spend the money and get the right guys, because if not, the turnover ratio is going to be every other year. We're not going to be happy. I mean, look what Manny Diaz did with the offense. He spent money. He got 3 offensive coordinator of minds who all have ran the offense, and look how much we progressed just on the offense. We got to do it on the defense.
And to add what Toast and Brad were saying, if this is an entry-level position at the cornerback position for the program, the University of Miami, moving forward, Miami needs to fix that if they want to compete at the elite level, because then you're just going to try to find hidden gems, diamonds in the rough. Then if that's what you're looking for, entry-level coaching positions. My dream is Miami, for example, Steve Sarkisian takes over Texas. He's like, I'm going to go get Corey Raymond from LSU, the cornerbacks coach there. I wish we could fund our program the way bigger schools are, but like Toast said, we're a small little private.
It's never going to happen.
And
we're never going to spend $25 million to get rid of a coaching staff.
That's a dream.
Yeah.
Mark, Corey's my guy. I wish we could get a guy like Corey, but it's never going to happen.
Guys, going into this offseason, if Blake Baker is retained, or if we don't have someone overseeing this defense, how worried should we be? Because ultimately, we need a co-defensive coordinator. We've given up 99 points the past 2 games, over 1,100 total yards, just top of my head that I'm thinking. It's an estimate. It could be even more in the past 2 games. I mean, what's kind of everyone's feelings going into next year if Packy, Baker are still on this staff per se? And that's from the Manny Diaz coaching tree.
Who wants to go first?
All right, I'm done. I'm done with it. I'm absolutely done with it. Listen, you can't go ahead and clean house on the offensive side and then see the same problem on the defensive side and not do it because they're your boys. That's not working for me. We've been there. We've been there. We know his name. I don't want to go. We know how that show ends. We've seen that show before in the last 10 years. So, yeah, man, he doesn't make this move. For me, 554 was a fireable offense. It was a fireable offense. You then add on to that the start of the bowl game. And, yeah, man, I'm sorry, but he's got to go. And if Manny ain't willing to make that move, then I am going to lose serious. Manny will drop in my mind. In my mind, Manny's seat is hot as it can be, and I'm ready to move on at that stage. If he won't make this move, I might be off the Manny train for good.
Yeah, I mean, I I very much agree with Toast. I don't see how you can, as a defensive coordinator, since Blake Baker's been here, the defense has, degressed, and even the positions that he coaches have degressed. What does he coach? Inside linebackers?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, do we have to talk about that position and how bad they've gone? And so I just don't see. I don't understand the logic in keeping him around, even a demotion. I mean, why? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me to demote a guy and keep him on the staff. I don't feel like the players would really be motivated to play for that guy. And so going into next season, I'll be completely honest. I'm very, very nervous and not as enthusiastic or hopeful as I was coming into the 2020 season. 2020, we had Rhett Lashley, we had Derek King, we had all this optimism, and we still have that, but we still have a lot of problems on the defensive side of the ball. And the head guy running the defense he's still there. And I know that a cornerback coach would do well, but I don't know. And Patke I'm fine with, because, he coached strikers, and Frierson, played very well this year, I thought. But I think Blake Baker is an average at best defensive coordinator. And if Manny is fine with that, then, I agree with Toast. Maybe a change needs to be made here in the future, but it comes down to whether or not you're all right with average.
Yeah, I agree. And if Baker is still defensive coordinator after all this, man, first of all, looking at the schedule next year, I think at the best we're going maybe 3 losses, maybe 3 losses. So when
are those 3 losses going to happen?
First,
with all due respect, I told him this morning on the podcast, I said, dude, don't hate me. I could legitimately see us starting 0-3.
It could possibly happen. I mean, it definitely could. But
I'm scared as hell of that opening schedule. I am terrified. I'm terrified.
Who made that schedule, by the way?
I don't know. How the hell is Central Connecticut State on it? I went to Central Connecticut State. Dude, they didn't have a football program then. I don't even know what the hell. It's insane.
So with Coach Baker, though, like, if he's still defensive coordinator, we're easily going to lose 4 games. I think Manny Diaz is pretty much written off his ticket to leave, in my opinion. But if he does stay, I think he has to at least get demoted to, whether or not if it's a co-DC or a safety position. You have to make sure you hire the right guys around him that are like all defensive coordinator minded, like the guys like the Charlie Partridges, the T-Robs. Like if you get those 2 hires to build around Blake Baker, now your Band-Aid is a lot bigger than what it needs to be, right? But from what I heard, we'll go into defensive line as well, because that's a position that we've been talking about for a while. And a name that's been thrown out a lot that makes sense, which is Coach Jess Simpson, who obviously was a coach at Miami for a year, went to the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, that seems like a perfect fit for us. But from what I heard, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think Miami has reached out, from what I've heard.
Wow.
Which is a little weird to me. It kind of makes me feel like Manny Diaz already has his guy, because going back to the cornerback coach with Wesley Griffiths, a guy that I thought would have been very good for us on both sides of the ball. He was interested in Miami, but it seemed like Miami didn't put the pressure on it too much. So it seems like Manny is kind of eyed in on 1 or 2 guys in each position group now, and he's kind of going full force at it. With the cornerbacks, I kind of mentioned DVD and T-Rob, and obviously the wild card that I mentioned as well. But as far as D-line, as crazy as it sounds, I think Coach Simpson is actually out. I would be surprised if he ends up being hired. The guy I would look at is Colorado. Trying to remember what his name. Hold on. Let me get it. It's not Brian Williams.
He's from Maryland.
Yeah, it's not Maryland. It's someone from Colorado. Yep.
Charlie Parrish for me would be a home run hire. Jimmy Brumbaugh. Is that him?
No.
Okay.
So with Charlie Partridge, I've heard that he's not interested.
Really?
Yeah, dude, I don't know why he would be, unless you were bringing him to be defensive coordinator. It's
Correct.
a lateral move to him. I don't understand why he. Again, I mean, I understand that we have a very high opinion of ourselves as a program, but it's the same. We're the same as Pittsburgh right now. Basically, we are. So why would you? I don't understand unless it's about the weather. That's all. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
He hates the snow.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't like, if I was Partridge, I wouldn't come to Miami just to be just the defensive line coach. It would have to be more responsibility, like a co-defensive coordinator. Like if that is, I don't know. It troubles me that Simpson hasn't even been talked to, because I think Simpson did an incredible job here in 2018. When you look at guys like Gerald Willis, Joe Jackson, Jonathan Garvin. But in my mind, like Partridge and Simpson were the two best guys that we could hire at this position. So, and I don't want to hear Kevin Patrick.
It was Chris Wilson, by the way.
Chris Wilson.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and
that's
so
the name I heard.
But also we've done very well the past few years at with the defensive line coaches. So that position group I'm not as worried about as I am with who is going to be coaching the defensive backs and if Blake Baker's still here.
Yeah, that's a good point Marsh makes. I mean, we're kind of rebuild and reload at the defensive line position. I mean, Kuligowski, Jess Simpson, Coach Stroud. I mean, look at all the guys we've produced to go on and play at the next level. So, I think we'll be fine, whoever is coaching our defensive line moving forward. And Pat Ridge would be a home run hire, because then you have your co-defensive coordinator there. He already has a great record. His resume speaks for itself at Wisconsin, at Arkansas under Brett Bielema. He was a head coach at FAU and under Pat Narduzzi, who's known for his defenses throughout his career since his time at Michigan State. So I think ultimately Pat Ridge is your guy, and I would open up the checkbook for him. I just, I wish Miami would be more aggressive, but it is what it is moving forward.
Listen, man, Manny's a defensive guy, and so there's a pride there. That Manny has a list of guys that either he's worked with or whatever that that all coaches do. They all have that list in their drawer of like 5 or 6 guys ready to call if one of their guys is going to go ahead and get a job offer. You don't wait until it happens. You always have that list ready to go. So listen, he's your head coach. You got to have faith. He's a defensive guy. You got to have faith now that he is going to hire the right guy with the budget that he has, and it's on him. I will tell you this: Manny Diaz can't keep firing the entire side of the football every single year.
Yes.
This can't keep happening, okay? Because then you're going to have who's going to want to come here if they know that it's possibly going to be for 1 year, that there's no – so this can't be – he's done it to the offense twice. He hasn't done it to the defense, so he gets one on the defense, but this can't happen again next year where he's cleaning house on it, because then he's gone.
Yeah, and that going back to T-Rob, right? I mean, the T-Rob smoke, the fact that we're hearing this from multiple sources and we know that the smoke is legit, that kind of tells me that, hey, maybe we are willing to spend the money. Now it's just, are we going to spend enough money to actually give away Manny Diaz's pride, like you're saying, and make him either defensive coordinator or co-DC? Because obviously if T-Rob is coming aboard for the money that he wants, he's not going to just be a cornerback coach, right? We're going to have to give him more than that. So I think the fact that smoke is real, I think the difference between DVD and T-Rob being your cornerback coach is a lot different on the field, off the field, and money-wise. I think this is going to be the position coach hire that we're going to figure out if Manny Diaz really wants to be the coach of the future, because I think that hire right there will kind of dictate what other guys that we build around him that's opening up, and that could ultimately mean that Baker still might be defensive coordinator, and we might just go the cheaper route altogether. And if that's the case, unfortunately, it's not gonna be good.
Yeah, I mean, just like Toz was saying, like, I don't know, like I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm just kind of done. Like the cheaper route, that just pisses me off at UM. Like I don't know. I could go on for hours and hours about this, but yeah.
Well, I mean, so let's talk about some guys that have ended up coming back to the program and guys that have ended up leaving to the program, right? So guys like Bubba Bolden and Cam Harris will obviously be returning We just found out about an hour ago that Brevin Jordan will be leaving to the NFL. Me personally, I think it was kind of good for him just because regardless this year or next year, I think you're looking at a 3rd through 5th round draft grade regardless. And I mean, he is the 3rd best tight end going into the NFL this year. So I think he's right where he needs to be. I think we have so many other guys at tight end to where if he did return, I think you would see maybe two guys end up transferring that I probably wouldn't want to. So best of luck to Brevin. So that kind of leaves us with one guy left, and that's Mike Harley. I want to get y'all's opinion on pretty much what you think Mike Harley's going to do, and then also we will discuss possible other wide receivers that could join this program from the portal.
Go ahead.
All right. So Harley saved himself in my eyes second half of the season. Man, I lost it after the Jugs comment. I couldn't believe but he came back. He showed up unlike some other folks in that room. So I'm cool with Harley. But I am completely done with the other 2 guys. I want to see Keyshawn Smith. I want to see the rookies that are coming in. I want to see everyone else but those 2. Now I'm going to say their names. I don't want to see them. I don't want to see them. I'm done with those 2. And I'll tell you what, JP, I better see something real fast. He had better step up real. I mean, he better show me something versus Bama. He better step up in that game. I don't think it's going to go well for us, but he better step up in that game. I want to see something out of him out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, we keep hearing about JP. Like, I didn't like it. Was even before this season, people kept saying, "Oh, Peyton, like he's gonna break out like 800 to 1,000 yards." Why do you say that? Like, what makes you say that? Just because he looks big in pictures on Green Tree? Like, seriously, like I don't know. We just need to temper our expectations as a fan base. But Mike Harley is a guy that I would absolutely love to have back next year. I mean, he had 799 yards, 57 catches this year. He was by far the most productive receiver, and I think he's good for the locker room. 6 and 8, they could leave for all I care, honestly. But Harley's the kind of guy that I want in my locker room and on the field. A lot of people talk heat on Mike Harley, like, what did he do? I mean, he had a very productive season if you go look at the stats. So would love to have him back.
I personally would love Mike Harley to come back. I think it's best for his interest as well moving forward, because I think another season of tape on him, full season, really is going to improve his draft stock. And like Marsh said, we need a veteran leader presence in the wide receiver core, in that wide receiver room, because 6 and 8, it's not working out. I think we got to move forward, and Harley will be our number 1 guy next year. Maybe we'll talk about the transfer portal in a little bit. We'll peek at hopefully a strong Power 5 receiver, or maybe someone who shows a good skill set at the ACC level, the Power 5 level, to come in and complement Mike Harley. But ultimately, I think it's really going to help this team. And I don't know if we talked about Brevin Jordan yet, but him declaring for the draft, I think this opens a huge opportunity for Will Mallory. Throughout the season, I wanted Will Mallory to get more targets. He's 6'5". He ran track and field in high school. He's at times one of the most athletic players on the field. Give him an opportunity. Put him out on the boundary even. He's that good of a player. So ultimately, I would love to see Mike Harley return. I think this is a great opportunity for Will Mallory next year being the primary guy at tight end. And thank you to the 300 people on our show 23 minutes in. We greatly appreciate it. Yes, 300 people, stop what they're doing tonight just to listen to the Brady Bunch.
I love it. No, man, with Mike Harley though, man, yes, I agree. I think he should come back. I think he's obviously the only guy that we kind of depended on as far as a wide receiver this year. And I think going into next year, especially against Alabama, you're most likely going to open up with maybe not De'Aaron King. I think we could all agree if De'Aaron King is not 100% healthy, he definitely shouldn't be playing. And even if he is 100% healthy, why risk him getting re-injured or having his first game off that injury going against Alabama? Unfortunately, as Hurricane fans, we kind of all know going into that game, being a 28-point underdog right now, that we're going to lose that game, right? And with N'Kosi Perry obviously just announcing that he's going to transfer, we are pretty much going to see a true freshmen have their first snap against Alabama and Atlanta, and that's pretty scary. And the fact that we're not going to have possibly not one dependent receiver if Mike Harley does indeed leave is very, very, very concerning. But Paul actually just mentioned a guy I was going to bring up, and that's Will Mallory. I think regardless, Will Mallory is going to be that security blanket for one of these freshmen going into next season if De'Aaron King possibly doesn't play. We just need another big guy. I think regardless if Mike Harley stays, we need to get one more guy that brings in that veteran leadership, someone similar to a KJ Osborne from a couple years ago. And we'll bring up some names with the transfer portal here in a few.
Will Mallory is going to have a monster year. He's going to have a monster year. And, listen, best of luck to Brevin. I'm a little bit surprised just because he's going into the draft with an injury thing on him. It's attached to him. And I would have loved to have seen him come back and try to put forth an entire full season to get that stigma off of him. But whatever you got to do for yourself, best of luck to him. He'll be fine at the next level. But I think Will's going to have a huge season next year. Absolutely. And listen, man, I got no problem rolling into that game with TVD. Everything we hear, dude, he's got the moxie, he's got that he's got that swagger, he's got that everything I hear about him from folks up in Connecticut, that's the guy he is. I think he's going to relish this opportunity because at some point, you're right, De'Aaron's going to be, whether it's for week 2 or week 3 or whatever it is, De'Aaron's going to be the starter next year as soon as he is ready to go. But you know what? I got no problem letting TVD get his first reps, going in that game. Let's see what happens. What else we got to lose? We're 28-point dogs.
Yeah.
Hey, I tell you what, though, we do have some breaking news, though. We ended up having the best kicker in all of college football. Shout out to Mr. Jose Borregales for winning the award.
Beautiful. Good stuff.
Shout out to the Borregales family. I got to just talk to his younger brother not too long ago, man. So shout out to Jose Borregales and the Borregales family. I know you guys are very happy.
Well, the bar's been set for little bro now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. So yeah, man, let's dip a little bit into the transfer portal. That's obviously, with the football season ending, we ended off on a very disappointed note. But as we all know, there is one king of the offseason for the past couple of years, and we've been given heat on Manny Diaz for some of these coaching changes so far. But as far as the offseason, he does find a way to end up at the top when it comes to this transfer portal stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about that. One name I want to start right off the bat and get y'all's points on is someone that we really didn't think we had a chance with, even though his older brother played with us. And looking at the position group, you would think we're pretty fine at this position. But let's talk about Mark Anthony Richards, Amon Richards' younger brother, who played running back at Auburn. It seems to me, from what I heard, that there is similar contact between the two. What is your thoughts on a Mark Anthony Richards? Do you actually see him being in that running back role, or do you think he could possibly be like a Swiss Army knife similar to what we use with like a Jeff Thomas or a Mark Pope, so to speak?
I love him. We had him on the OBB with his brother. Great kid. Can he play cornerback? I would have no problem. I would have no problem with him coming. I would be surprised if he came just because of the way that room is right now. There's a lot of competition in that room, and I have no doubt that he's confident in himself. But I don't know. I would be surprised. I would love to have him. That'd be great. But I would be surprised if he landed here, unless it's a position switch. And I don't know where that is. That wide receiver? Is that on the offensive side? Is that on the defense? I don't know. What's that? What is that switch? What are we talking about? Do you guys know?
Yeah. I just don't. I don't see. I don't see him coming here if it's running back. Like I just don't see the point for him, and also for the Canes when we could use that spot for a position of need.
I will say this: he is very elusive. He's also a pretty good returner. I would say that the only thing I could think of is that what we were trying to use Malik Curtis for, as far as the offensive weapon and return wise, maybe we're kind of depending Malik Curtis to be only solely on a cornerback position, and we kind of bring Mark Anthony Richards in to kind of solidify what we were hoping Malik Curtis can do on offense. But at the same time, we only have 2 spots really right now, right? But as we all know, the staff, we have like 12 names in the in the transfer portal that everyone has brought up that we know Miami's had contact with, which kind of tells me that we're working with more than 2 spots. Because there's no way we could land all these guys in all these different positions. There's about 4 different position groups that we need some bodies in. But obviously quarterback, running back, we don't need any. We just discussed about Mike Harley. So let's kind of talk about the receivers in the transfer portal. We have a few names. You got my guy Samori Toure out of Montana, who is one of my favorite choices right now. But the other guys you have is Marsh's favorite, which is Charleston Rambo out of Oklahoma.
He's a guy. Yeah.
And then we also got Keith Corbin, which is Houston out of Houston, which was De'Aaron King's teammate. I believe his best year at Houston was actually with De'Aaron King in that phenomenal 2018 season. He had over 10 touchdowns. Most of those touchdowns were going for over 25 yards, so he is a deep threat. What are your thoughts as far as the receiver? Do you think we actually need another receiver, regardless if Harley comes back or not? And who would you end up choosing?
Yeah, we need all the receivers, dude. We need people that can catch the ball because I don't know. Listen, I love the recruits we got coming in. I love those kids coming in, but we've never seen them play before. So who the hell knows? I am a huge Keyshawn Smith fan, but I don't again, like JP, I don't understand why hasn't been able to break through and get past those 2 other guys on the depth chart. I kind of like the guy from Montana. I don't know. I was surprised that Kane fans were like, Montana. Like, dude, we went to Buffalo for our best receiver. Buffalo. Like, I mean, so I don't care. Can he catch? Is he a good leader? I don't care where he played. I don't care if he was a diamond in the rough that people missed out in recruiting 4 years ago. Whatever. We'll take him. Absolutely. The Rambo thing, this might not be popular. I think what we learned at Oklahoma was that he's not a 4-star. I think he was overrated. I don't think he's that guy. And folks saying he's going to go to Alabama, I don't think he can get on the field at Alabama. He could get on the field at Oklahoma. Like, what? No. Wait, really? So for me, I think he is a bust. I think he's a bust.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we need desperate help at the wide receiver room, and we are not going to get the help that we need from the incoming freshmen or honestly the first-year guys right now. They're just not going to be that guy in 2021, which is, we got to give them time, I guess. But all the guys in the portal that we're looking at wide receiver-wise, Rambo is skilled, but kind of like Toe said, he kind of dropped off at Oklahoma. There's nobody in the portal right now that could come in and have a dominant season at wide receiver. Like, they would come in, add depth, get 40 to 50 catches, but that's about it. Like, we're not looking at anybody right now that could come in and, change that wide receiver room, in my opinion. And I know we all like to get excited about the transfer portal, but that's just facts. Like, Torrey would be good. Rambo would be good. Who's the other wide receiver? Corbin.
Corbin.
He's whatever, I guess. But I think we're just going to add a guy that can hopefully catch the ball. That's all I want.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal for us. That's a big deal for us.
Yeah. Which is huge at Miami. Yes. If you can pass a little slant pass, that's great. But I mean, we're not going to be adding a guy that will dramatically change our offense.
No, for sure.
Corbin actually dropped like 8 passes, I think, this past season. A lot of people pointed out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. For me personally, I think the safest transition that's not a gamble is Charleston Rambo. He's coming from Oklahoma. That's a high-powered offense under Lincoln Riley. Great quarterback with Spencer Rattler. He had a good season last year with 40 receptions, I think over 700 receiving yards. That's a ballpark number. Don't quote me on that. But going from a high-powered offense conference in the Big 12, going to the weakest division in college football, in my opinion, the ACC Coastal, I think that's a nice transition for him to succeed. And I think it's a very safe gamble on a scholarship player. Samori Toure, a lot of people like him as a player. He's coming from the FCS level. It'll be, in my opinion, it's very interesting to see how he will develop at the Power 5 level, how he'll pan out. But, the beauty of the transfer portal is that Miami can be patient with this whole wide receiver position or cornerback position, whoever they want to take. Like Brad mentioned previously, Pelic grants go out January 11th. After that date, everybody and their mom is going to be running to the transfer portal. So Miami, just take your time, be patient. Look what happened to Georgia with Kirby Smart. They went after Jamie Newman. right away, and they lost D'Eriq King, and he came to Miami because Miami was patient. So, hey, let's just be patient and see what happens because we only named 3 guys right now, but I think a lot more are going to be coming in.
Yeah, yep. And I mean, with Samori Toure is my personal favorite. I liked him from the jump. I just think he checks all the boxes that we need. The only box he doesn't check is he's not from that flashy program, you know. But everything else that you would look for a wide receiver that we've been missing this year, he does everything that he needs to do. And he's an academic Heisman, so he's very smart and intelligent. As far as with Charleston Rambo, from what I've heard, it's between Miami and SMU. It's between those 2 schools. Keith Corbin, it's probably just more of D'Eriq King trying to get that pull for him. But we'll see about that. But as far as the cornerback position, another transfer portal position that we're in very dying need of, it seems like we only have one guy that we're looking at getting. And nobody really knew we were looking at getting this guy until a few days ago when a reporter decided to bring out these news that Tyreek Stevenson and Miami were kind of in talks. And now it seems like, from what I heard on my end, from social media, the past 24 to 48 hours, a couple people were hinting of a silent commit. From what I heard, Tyreek Stevenson was supposed to be that guy. The fact that he hasn't committed is kind of telling me that Georgia's putting a little bit more pressure on him now. You have guys like James Cook and JT Daniels who have both decided to come back to Georgia. So from what I heard, those 2 guys are in his ear 24/7, trying to get him in. From everything you've seen with Georgia in the past few days, they've had 3 to 4 cornerbacks declare for the NFL draft, which kind of means Tyreek Stevenson would be the number 1 corner at Georgia if he decided to stay. And now a lot more pressure is on the kid to make a decision, because now people are aware that Miami is in the back of his mind. And I don't even think Georgia, from everything I've read on the Georgia boards, no Georgia fan, nobody on the Georgia committee knew that Tyreek Stevenson was involved with Miami until that news came out. So I'm a little worried about that. But again, going back to the beginning of the show when it comes to this cornerback transfer portal, even though there's only one guy we're looking at right now, if we indeed get T-Rob, Tavares Robinson, which David Lake just reported not too long ago that we are the team to beat for him, if we decide to pull that trigger and we get him, this will be just as big as a hire as Rhett Lashley last year. I will mark that down right now, because this is a guy that easily should be all over the SEC again. I mean, he lives in the SEC, and the fact that we're actually going to spend some money and grab a big-time guy from the SEC because it's between us and Auburn, that's very telling for Manny Diaz. So I really do hope he makes that hire, and if he does, I think the next couple hires behind that will be just as big.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with this 2022 class and how loaded it is on the defensive side of the ball, especially in South Florida, getting a guy like T-Rob is absolutely crucial. I mean, Toast and I talk about it all the time on the show. If we don't, like Earl Little Jr., if we don't get him, then I give up on cornerback recruiting, honestly. But also, like, the guy on the opposite side of the field of him, Jacoby Spells, he's a really good player too, but there's so much talent on defense in this area for this next class, and getting a guy like T-Rob is the move you have to make if you want to get those higher up guys, honestly.
And not only recruiting, but not only is he going to bring in the corners that we've been missing, but like we keep mentioning, he's a defensive coordinator minded guy. He has coordinated defenses before, so regardless what we end up making his title here at Miami, which if he does come to Miami, I highly doubt the money we're paying him, he's only going to come for corner. So if we end up landing T-Rob, we just landed a defensive coordinator pretty much for the staff, regardless if he is the DC or not, which kind of tells me that Manny's trying to slowly do what he did on the offense, which is going to be very telling to me because in my opinion, man, it's T-Rob or DVD. So, and that's a big up and down right there. That can really swing your whole defense.
Very much so.
Listen, all I know is we need Tyreek Stevenson. That's all I know. I mean, I'll drive him down. I'll go pick him up.
Not that
far. Yeah. And listen, we got he's going to have issues bringing in guys with Baker still there. I don't know, man. I agree with that. The fact that he hasn't made that move means he's not making that move because it's the silly season now. You need to have that open so folks know that it exists, and you've waited too long. So now he's back, man. They had the meeting. He placed blame on everyone. It was the coaches and the players can all be better. Great, Blake. That's fucking awesome.
And what I honestly see with this is, if we do in fact land T-Rob, I could honestly see if one or two things is going to happen to Blake Baker. Either he is going to get canned, or he could possibly end up being the safeties coach, and you would have T-Rob. You would have T-Rob be the co-DC and cornerbacks.
He didn't coach safeties. That doesn't make sense, though.
So no, he did though. He did. He coached safeties back in 2013 over, I believe, Arkansas State. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, that was a great crew they had in that
yeah,
year.
Guys, if Manny does make this change, I mean, like David Lake said from 24/7 Sports, it seems like Miami is the front runner to land T-Rob, Travaris Robinson. Do you guys give more time to Manny Diaz moving forward, that you appreciate that he made a change and brought over someone to oversee the defense or share the role with Blake Baker, or it's 9-3 or better next year?
Yes.
Yeah, no, listen, and it's not only 9-3, it's how you look. Like 8-3, we should be thrilled, dude, going from 6-7 to 8-3. But those 3 losses were awful. They were horrific. And finishing 0-2 like that. So yeah, no, man. Like for me, he's on the hot seat. He's already on the hot seat. Like, he's making this hire to save his job, because he has to hit it out of the park this year. He has to those first 3 games of the season. All right, listen, forget about Alabama. They have to show up in every game. They can't have one of these, we're down 21-3 at the end of the first quarter things. That can't be the routine when we're playing North. Dude, we're going to finish at Pitt and at North Carolina, I think. The beginning and end, away games. Yeah, the beginning and the end are just, I can see 4 losses right there. Yep. So, man, like, this is a big year for him. This is going to be a tough schedule, and these kids better show up every week, because they haven't been.
And so, and I said like the same thing on 4's Up last night, because I predicted 8-3 before the year. And I said, if we went 8-3, I'd be thrilled because of how last year was and everything. But given how the last 2 games were, 8-3, it felt like shit, to be honest. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter is that you are as good as the last game that you played. And so Manny can, if he takes a step back, I don't want to see him back at Miami in 2022. That's just the fact of like, I want someone, I don't know. It's a very, very passionate subject, and because everyone loves Manny, because we all thought he'd be the guy because he's a Miami guy. But if he doesn't, you have to keep moving forward. And I know the hires and everything, but ultimately you are the head guy that creates that culture at UM, that creates the mindset at UM, and you are the guy that the players look up to on Saturdays and every day on Green Tree. So, and if that doesn't improve, if we still have players saying that, people weren't bought in November against a number 17 team, then that is on the head coach. I'm sorry.
And I mean, to your point with the 3 losses that you think we're going to have next year, I agree. Before this staff that we're going to see get assembled, if we would have still came in with Baker as our defensive coordinator for next season, I easily saw 3 losses. And when you look at it, that's not you look at the numbers, it might look good. But again, going back to what me and Toe say, Manny Diaz's biggest win is against NC State. So what you can have 3 losses at this schedule that we're seeing next year, and you still wouldn't win a big game. And if you don't win your bowl game, where have you progressed? You have to win the bowl game, and you have to win the big games. Throw the Bama game out of the loop. That's obviously not a big game, but you talk about Michigan State, North Carolina, Appalachian State. Those are big games for Manny Diaz. You have to win those games. If you don't, and you don't win the bowl game, I'm sorry. That's already 3 to 4 losses, and you have not progressed.
All right, so let me just ask you this. All right. First game of the season, Blake is back. He is the DC. We've seen that Alabama offensive line. We know who the running backs they have. UNC put up 5.54. What does Alabama put up in that game on the ground? Above
still running.
5.54 is the median. High or low? We were over under is 5.54. We're going over or under. I'm going over.
You know what's funny? I actually say under because I think the quarterback is going to end up throwing for over like 600, 700.
Okay, well, all right, well, but it'll be a 1,000-yard game. It's a 1,000-yard game.
Devontae Smith would have 54 receiving yards.
Remember this,
the new one.
How funny would it be if like Adam Gase is their offensive coordinator?
Oh, I can totally see it.
They're going after Adam Gase or Bill O'Brien for their next OC. Like,
and neither one would do incredible.
Dude, you know how much I would kill for Charlie Strong and their analysts to come down and be our DC?
When we are hiring new coaches,
you
just look at who is on the Alabama analyst
staff.
Role, and that is the guys that are that serve as Alabama's analyst are far and away better than Miami's coaching staff. Just Alabama's analysts.
Yeah.
They're not even playing the same sport.
No.
Outlook going into, transfer portal wise, guys going into the offseason. What do you think Miami finishes out with? Do they get an outside linebacker, an edge rusher? Do they get a cornerback, wide receiver, quarterback situation? Moving forward, guys, I mean, N'Kosi Perry just transferred as well. Do we take someone at the quarterback position from the transfer portal just to stall, or are we starting a true freshman, or D'Eriq King's ready to go? I mean, I think that's a viable question.
I don't think that I think normally if D'Eriq didn't have the injury, this was all set up. He was going to start. We were going to have TVD and Jake were going to be behind with Peyton also involved. They all get a full year, and then the 2022 battle is awesome between all three of them. They've all got time under the program. I don't think you change that because D'Eriq might miss the first 3 or 4 games. I don't think you blow up your entire plan and bring somebody in that, I don't think you do that. You got to see what we got with TVD. I want to see what we have with him. Like everyone's raving about him. Let's see him. For some reason, you didn't want to show him to us this year when you could have late in the season. But I want to see him.
Yeah, it would be kind of stupid to bring in a transfer portal quarterback. I mean, if King is the starter, or TVD, or Jake Garcia, or freaking Ken Dorsey, or Dan Marino, it doesn't matter. We're going to lose to Alabama. I don't care. So, and if King is coming back week 3 or 4, we don't know that yet. There's no need to bring in a transfer quarterback. Let the young guys develop and then go after some studs at quarterback in the 2022 class and just continue to hopefully develop that position with TVD and Garcia and, whoever else is there. But no, it wouldn't make sense to bring in a quarterback guy.
Brad,
can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah,
go
ahead.
What happens? Because one of my issues with Manny is the way that we give out playing time, which seems to be based on seniority, not performance. So let me ask you this: what happens week 1 against Alabama when Don Chaney has outperformed Cam during preseason? Who's going to be the starter? Who does he give the starting job to? When we know Chaney's the better running back, he's going to outperform him in preseason. Who's he give the starting ball to week 1?
He'll give it to Cam Harris.
Yes, he will.
We've seen this time and time before. The Scott Patchen situation with Gregory Rousseau. I mean, Gregory Rousseau, he could have finished the season with like literally over 20 sacks if he wanted to, if he started from day one. Scott Patchen, he stopped taking over that role at defensive end, 6 games in? I mean,
it wasn't that, was it? Or like 4 or 5?
It was a long time. Yeah, it was a long time. I mean, I think we're going to see them, not only that, so I think they're going to share snaps, or the majority is going to go to Cam, and I would love to see Don Chaney take over as the primary running back moving forward. I think he moves the offense a lot more.
But what does that say that our coaching staff doesn't value competition over seniority? That, like, there's no teams out there that are winning that's not how Bama and Clemson are playing. That's not how they run. So that's a serious philosophical issue. Like,
just look at the wide receiver depth chart. That's all that has to be said.
Yeah.
So I will say this though. So with the spread with the spread offense that Rhett actually runs, when you look at other teams that perform well and execute it, we're still trying to get there. And I think with those teams that we're talking about, you never really talk or care about who's RB1, who's RB2, who's receiver 1, who's receiver 2, because they all mesh together and they all end up getting theirs, right? Where I think with Miami, I think part of our problem was, for one, we weren't able to gel together for a full season. This first upcoming season was De'Aaron King. And then also, you got to also take into account that Rhett Lashley and these receivers weren't really on the same page. And De'Aaron King, as much as we love De'Aaron King, the deep ball wasn't really there to execute to where it was putting more dependability on these running backs to where it was kind of obvious when we would run the ball. As soon as N'Kosi Perry got into the football game, regardless if the receivers were catching the ball or not, we were throwing the ball consistently deep like every other play. What was that doing to the opposing defense? It was keeping them off balance to where it didn't matter who was at running back. They were able to have bigger holes to run through because of what we were able to accomplish down the field. And I think that's something that N'Kosi Perry, something that Tyler Van Dyke, and something that Jake Garcia can bring to the table that maybe De'Aaron King couldn't. And it could open up our running game regardless who is running back one and who's running back two.
And that's a very, very good point, because a lot of people, when we talk recruiting and, quarterbacks, they just want the dual threat guy. But I would much rather have a pocket passer, quarterback who's more of the pocket passer type, because if you have a quarterback who is dangerous consistently with his arm and can hit the deep ball, that will open up the running game. That'll, push the DBs back, push the defense back. And so I think that's a very good point, Brad.
And who is that on per se? We talked about guys offensively, 6 and 8, still getting more snaps, not the young guys, but, Rhett Lashley, he's calling the shots offensively, like people stated in the chat. Why do we continuously do this? Like Toast was mentioning, but offensively as well. Are the young guys just not ready to go, you guys think?
I think it's a little bit of everybody, man. I think first off, the offensive line, don't get me wrong, they have improved, but we got to remember how bad of an offensive line we were just a year ago. The fact that we improved from last year to this year isn't much of an improvement because of how bad we were. Now, the jump from where we improved isn't really much yet. And I think this next following year is where we're going to see that real test of Coach Justice and how well he can develop guys. Because I think part of the problem, especially in the trenches, the guard play especially, we don't have those big bodies that could kind of plug and clog the holes, and it hurts not only the offensive line, it hurts our quarterback who isn't very tall, it hurts our running game that we've just been talking about, and it hurts the receivers because they only have a few seconds to get open because that offensive line still unfortunately sinks in and caves in from time to time. And I think this is going to be this next step. We're going to know week 1 right off the bat if these kids are ready, because you are going against the best defensive line in all of college football, and that's Alabama every single year.
Yeah, well, and a quick point, I'm a huge fan of Coach Justice. I do think that, his offensive line is going to improve, and Zion Nelson took a huge step this year. But if you look at the other guys, it really wasn't that eye-opening. It was almost, discouraging how low the development was with those guys. We were, I think, 120th this season in tackles for loss allowed, and we were still pretty bad when it came to sacks allowed. And imagine if we didn't have a quarterback like De'Aaron King who could avoid the rush at times. People would be screaming for Coach Justice to be fired.
Yeah,
100%. Brad, anything else you want to talk about before we get into a Q&A?
I think Supreme Goon just asked a question about offensive linemen in the transfer portal. From our head, I don't think we're looking at any more offensive linemen. The only guys we looked at were for incoming freshmen, and obviously we missed on those guys. I will say one interesting thing. I think we could potentially, I talked about it last show that we were going to have a couple guys end up leaving. I do think there is going to be 1 or 2 guys on the offensive line that will end up hitting the transfer portal. And I'll even go a step further and say I think Jalen Rivers and Navon Donaldson will end up being the guards this year. And I think you could possibly see a guy like Delone Scaife end up sliding out to the tackle spot and having him and Zion Nelson as your tackles.
What about Walker Jr.?
And Isaiah Walker will end up fighting for one of those spots, I would say.
Okay. All right.
How would you guys feel about this scenario? Travaris Robinson coming in and then DeMarcus Van Dyke as an assistant again. I think that's a win for Miami moving forward. Kind of oversees the cornerback room. Travaris Robinson, he's taking over as co-DC, safeties, and cornerback, just, needs an assistant to help him out.
Here's my thing. It's a win for us, but is it a win for DVD? I mean,
yeah. Why wouldn't I go to Utah State?
Go to Utah State and actually be the cornerback coach. But at the same time, now that we're hearing the real smoke about T-Rob, now this is where it's kind of confusing to me, because if we're having real smoke about T-Rob, obviously he coaches corners, but we're still haven't heard that DVD is going to go to Utah State. So what if we're actually going to get rid of Baker and T-Rob is our co-DC, and then DVD will actually end up being our cornerback coach? What about that scenario? I mean, that's also another possible scenario. I would think in the next 48 hours, we're going to see how real the T-Rob smoke is, and if DVD decides to go to Utah State.
I love that. I just think that Baker already would have been fired. If he was going to get canned, I think he's already gone. I don't think Manny lets him sit this long, because he'd at least want him to be out there so we can get another gig. So I don't think, like that's his boy. I don't think so I think we got him. He's ours. Yay.
Brad, what's going on with that linebacker from University of Southern California moving forward? Is Miami, I know it was between Miami and Michigan State. Is Miami out of the picture now? And is that a wrap for the outside linebacker position?
Isn't his brother at Michigan State?
Yes.
Yeah, his brother's at Michigan State. From what I heard as well, I think he is going to Michigan State. But I mean, Bubba Bolden did end up deciding to return, and I know that's like one of his best friends. That's probably the closest guy he's with. So we'll see what happens with him. There is another guy, 6'3" linebacker. I think he goes to Vanderbilt. He was in the transfer portal. I'm trying to think of his name, but he's another option I would say that we could look at in the transfer portal. But again, January 11th, just wait. You'll probably see a lot more guys. I'm convinced that another receiver from a big-time SEC school will hit the portal as well.
Sure. All right, we got 4 minutes left. What's everyone's bold prediction for the 2021 Miami Hurricanes football season? Could be an off-season move, whatever you want. We'll start off with Toast.
Oh God. I think by mid-season, the fan base is aware and is unified that Manny ain't the guy. I think what we see the first half, I don't think those first 4 games go well. Or I'm sorry, the first 3 games go. I don't think they go well. I just don't. I have a bad feeling. I have his track record is they don't show up for big games. That's his track record. I'm only going by what he's done as a head coach. I don't have confidence right now, man. And it kills me, but yeah, I think it's going to be a rough season.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Great. Yeah, I'm a downer. I know. I'm an ass. I'm sorry. Mr. Negative. I know. I'm sorry.
No, the thing is, like people say the same thing about me, but we're not downers. We're just being realistic. Like, what do you want to do? You want us to lie? You want us to lie? My bold prediction is I think we go 8-4, maybe, hopefully. And I agree with Toast. I think it's going to be a little rough, and we're going to see, I think we're going to see more clearly about what Manny Diaz is as a head coach. Honestly, I just don't. I want to believe that this program is on the up and up because of this recruiting class and because of the coaches on the offensive staff. But you're just going to have to prove it to me. Like, I'm done with the off-season optimism just because we're the U.
Let me just sad to say this: De'Ara King's injury can't be the excuse for Manny next year. No matter what happens at the end of the season, the excuse can't be, well, he didn't have De'Ara King for the first 3, 4, 5 games. That can't be the excuse. That's not going to fly. That's not going to fly.
I agree. My bold prediction is we keep everything in-house and we promote within this coaching staff.
Ooh.
My bold prediction is Manny will be Manny, and DeMarcus Van Dyke will be our cornerback coach, and Telly Lockett will end up replacing DeMarcus Van Dyke's position at what he was doing, and Blake Baker will still be defensive coordinator. That is my bold prediction.
Oh my!
Then. All right,
the Miami way.
Yeah. We don't like controversy. We like average.
I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because this T-Rob smoke is definitely. I knew it was real, but it's almost too good to be true. It's like we've seen this story too many times, and I think within the next 48 hours, you're going to see T-Rob and Auburn make a deal, and we're going to start crying real soon.
Now, if he goes to Auburn, Derek Mason's already been their defensive coordinator, right? Or is that Derek Mason, the ex-Vanderbilt head coach, hasn't he already been named their defensive coordinator?
At Auburn?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So he would just be like a cornerbacks coach or defensive backs coach?
Yep. I'm worried that Miami's not gonna give him what he wants.
Right.
That's what I'm worried at. I think he doesn't. He's not coming in here to just be the cornerback coach. I can tell you that right now.
Well, then the fundraiser better raise some money.
Yeah.
That's you, BJ. Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm wrong though. I mean, I've been hearing that this smoke has been picking up for a while, so I want to see it now.
I just want to see wins, man. I just want I'm sick and tired of Manny being the king of the offseason because honestly, come November, that doesn't mean a damn thing if you are losing by 40.
Let's be the king of the postseason for once.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I want a quiet off season. I want a quiet transfer portal.
Yeah.
I don't want drama at the end of every single season. I want a stable program.
I want to finish a season on an up note.
I want 10 wins.
Yeah.
I want 10 wins. I've seen that once in my life.
I just want to win a bowl game.
Yeah, thank you.
A bowl game.
Marsh hasn't seen them win a bowl game in his lifetime.
Yeah,
Come
I've
on.
seen them win one. I literally seen them win 2 bowl games since I became a fan. 17 years ago. I'm tired of being just so mediocre and average. I want to see the actual you.
And I've smoked so much pot, I don't even remember the last one we had, the last win. I don't even remember that game.
Yeah.
Gone.
With that said, man, Brad, anything else you got before we wrap it up?
No, just make sure you guys tune in Monday through Friday on Onside Radio to hear my fellas Toast and Marsh, 4th and 20. They do an amazing job. These guys are great. Thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your night, talking some Canes football, getting these fans ready for this off season. And hey, man, this T-Rob situation, ladies and gentlemen, is going to dictate how important this football team is to the University of Miami program. This hire right here.
100%.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it. And you guys can also, if you don't wake up early, you can also download the podcast. Just search 4th and 20 with Toast and Marsh, and you can get it in podcast form as well.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Awesome, guys. Thanks for
With a
coming.
bottle of wine. Jesus Christ. Oh, great.
Okay.